solihullradio.com. Hello and welcome back to Solihull Radio. We are going to be chatting money now, especially debt, and we're going to be having a chat to Carol Shaw. And Carol Shaw is just sitting as opposite me. How are you doing today, Carol?
I'm fine, Nicholas. How are you?
I'm very, very well. I'm very good. You're a bit of a debt advisor, aren't you?
I am, yes, I am.
But you've also previously been a financial advisor as well.
Yes, that's correct.
And you've come in to talk to us a bit about your background and your life, but also your lovely business, DRS, Debt Relief Solutions. What is it you primarily do?
Well, Debt Relief Solutions is a not-for-profit community interest company based in Yardley, Birmingham. And we offer financial and debt advice to members of the community who are struggling in managing their money.
And basically, do you get lots of people coming through? Has that increased recently, or is it, or is that just a fact that your business model is expanding? What's happening?
Well, right from the day we started, which was way back many years ago, we've had a constant stream of clients, and but over the years, although the constant stream has increased and we get more and more people coming through, the reasons for them being in debt have seemed to have changed.
And what might those reasons be? Is there a trend, or is it different for different people?
Lots and lots of different reasons why people struggle with money and debt. It could be because of relationship breakdown, a bereavement in the family, loss of income through redundancy. But more recently, we're seeing quite a lot of people struggling due to benefit problems.
Is that universal credit?
Yes, it is.
What is the issue with universal credit? What tends to be the issue with it?
Well, from the people that we have seen, one of the main issues seems to be that once you're awarded universal credit, there is a little bit of a delay between being awarded the benefit and actually receiving the money. And in some cases, people have received funds from universal credit, but it's not been the amount that they've expected, so they've fallen into arrears very quickly with things like rent and council tax and utility bills. And
presumably in that position often there's nothing to fall back on, no savings, nothing like that.
No, there isn't. There's quite often people find themselves, in a difficult decision. Do they buy food or do they pay their heat and electric?
So it is quite literally that choice.
It can be, yes.
If someone comes to you in that position, how do you help them? What's some of the tips that you tend to get them to do to try and manage their own finances?
Well, first of all, we do advise them to get back in touch with the DWP to sort their benefits out as quickly as possible, because time is always of the essence. But regarding the other debts that they may be struggling with, whether it's utilities or loans, credit cards and what have you, the first instance, we would get them to contact those organisations directly, explain the situation to them and ask them just to put the accounts on hold for a short period whilst the benefits are being sorted out.
Do you find that people, creditors are often, they're amenable to that sort of thing?
To be honest, yes, most creditors are quite flexible. But the key to all of this is actually explaining to them what the situation is with the client. And we find that a lot of clients do fall into the trap of burying their head into the sand, which really doesn't help their situation. So we always recommend that communication is the key to solving all the problems.
Do you find people often come to you that might not be on benefits but have been quite frivolous with the credit card over time, or built up other debts, but actually they have the capability to actually pay them off, but they haven't chosen to do so as yet?
Yes, that's right. Yes, we do have clients come to us, and we always sort of, between ourselves, always categorise our clients between the can't pays and the won't pays. And people who come to us, quite often they'll walk through the door, they've amassed many thousands of pounds worth of debt over the years, whether it's credit cards or loans. When we look at their income, they have got the means to pay these items back, but they feel that they'd rather not. And sometimes they'll just walk in and say, please, can you make me bankrupt? But that's not really the area of work that we want to get involved in.
What's, is it an IVA? What's an IVA?
An IVA is an individual voluntary arrangement, and that is sort of, if you like, one step short of bankruptcy. An IVA is an option for clients where if they've got over a certain level of debt, they can apply for an IVA. It has to go through an insolvency practitioner, which means that it's a formal arrangement and they have to stick to it. They have to make regular payments into the IVA plan, and it normally lasts for about 5 years. At the end of that 5-year period, the money that's been amassed into the plan is then used to pay off all the creditors, and the remaining debt is then written off. It has a really, really adverse effect on your credit history, and it can take a few years to get your credit repaired. So we don't always recommend those. In fact, we always recommend that an IVA or bankruptcy is more of a last resort than a first resort.
So what's some of the tips that you might come up with in terms of making sure that you take care of your finances before you even get anywhere near that?
Education, really, teaching people and advising people how to budget, making sure that they do the simple things like being aware of how much money is coming into the household each month, and also being even more aware of what's going out. So many people have their wages or their benefits coming in and they don't really know where their money's going. So a good tip we would always say is to write everything down. You'd be really surprised how quickly your money disappears and what it disappears on.
So that it is quite literally keeping a tally up or an Excel spreadsheet and looking at your comings and goings and sort of making intelligent decisions about where everything goes.
Yes, just by writing it all down, you can spot hotspot areas that your money's sort of disappearing down the sinkhole. For example, you might be looking at your expenditure every month and suddenly find that you're spending over £100 a month on Sky or cable or something like that. And that's an area that we could really cut down on.
And that's the thing, you've got to look at what you're spending and thinking what you're getting back for it.
Yes, that's right.
Because obviously if you're looking at something like satellite TV or something like that, you think, do I enjoy that extra that Sky or Virgin might give me as opposed to Freeview, and actually would that money be better spent on something else?
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right.
So the question I've got for you, and it's a question that probably all of us sit there facing. You know, we've got, all of us, maybe a little bit of personal debt hanging around. You've got your disposable income. Do you go hell for leather paying off your debt and not saving, or is it best to save, or do a bit of both?
It obviously depends on each individual circumstances, but we would always advise to make sure that you're paying off the debt that has the highest interest rate first, because that's the one that's costing you the most money. If that means that you can also save a little bit as well for a rainy day or for emergencies, and that in itself would prevent you from taking out further debt further down the line, then that is a good practice as well.
Would you, and do you think that if you've got a credit card that's got a balance on it, is it worth shifting that balance to 0% deals and things like that and trying to manage things, or do you just get it paid off, just work on it?
If your credit is clean or fairly clean and you are able to go through the credit search in order to obtain a new credit card, and you're quite disciplined in determination into paying it off through the interest-free period, then that is a good way to go. But if you feel that you probably can't trust yourself to take out another credit card and to pay off the debt, having transferred it within the time period involved, then I would recommend that you stay where you are.
You also go out and do talks and workshops and try and do a bit of education. How does that work?
We do, yes. We work closely with other organisations, for example, local charities, churches, drop-in centres. We do workshops for the community there, and if anyone's listening who would like us to arrange a workshop, we'd be more than happy to do that. The workshops include basic things like budgeting, looking at your income and expenditure, discussing the differences between wants and needs, and that's a big area for us as well. But also trying to change people's mindsets so that they feel more empowered about managing their money and less scared about what would happen if they did get into debt.
Yeah. And so do you think that there's enough education for young people on this? Or is it largely a family's issue to teach their children about money, or is there not enough education in schools?
I'm glad you mentioned that, actually, because that's a pet topic of mine. I would love for money and debt and finances to be taught in schools. And I know there are various initiatives out there that schools can tap into. But I think as adults as well, it is our responsibility as parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles to influence the children in our environment and to ensure that they have good money skills before they become adults and may get into trouble.
Thank you very much. So you've got quite an exciting history that sort of brought you to this point, haven't you? You're an author. You've told the story through the books. Can you tell me a little bit about what's got you to this point? Because it's been a real roller coaster for you, hasn't it?
It certainly has, yes. To start at the beginning, I met my husband over 16 years. We're married 16 years this year, which is fantastic. When we met, my husband Robert was a financial advisor, having his own mortgage practice in Birmingham. And within a few years after that, after we were married, I actually went to work for him fairly soon after we met, in fact, because I was made redundant. And we worked together for a long time, and circumstances came about that he had to walk away from the business. There was a situation that he couldn't resolve, and he had to literally just walk away from the business and leave it because of certain things. Shortly after that, the 2008 recession hit us really, really hard. Being independent mortgage brokers, overnight our income went to a big fat zero. And just like everybody else, we had a mortgage, we had credit cards, we had the odd loan, we had a nice house, we had cars, and we needed to eat. First thing we did was we sat down and thought, right, we've got to jettison some of this expense. And the first thing to go was the house. There's no point sitting in a house that you cannot run just because it's a nice house. You can always live somewhere else. So we were lucky. We sold the house. We had to move to another property, and we literally started over from scratch.
So you've got first-hand experience, all the difficult decisions that your customers, your clients, have to go through on a day-to-day basis.
Yes, we're speaking from experience and not just from an advisory perspective. We know what it's like not to have food on the table. We know what it's like not to be able to pay your bills. We would turn up at mum and dad's on weekends just in time for meals so that we'd get a nice hot meal, which was lovely.
Tell me more. Tell me what has happened since
Yes.
you've sort of got yourself back up and
Yep.
working again.
So since the recession, we literally rebuilt ourselves. Robert has reskilled himself as a legal advisor, and I've sort of that's when I actually started doing debt advice seriously, and that's when Debt Relief Solutions was born. Moving forward to about 5 years ago, my husband became a little unwell, having a few balance issues and this, that and the other. And having had some tests, we were told that he had a brain tumour. This was a real bombshell. Weren't expecting it at all, came completely out of the blue. And again, it took us back to the recession, because the first thing we did was we sat down and thought, right, we have got to change something. Robert might not be able to work for a little while. At that point, we didn't know what the prognosis was going to be. So we sat down, went through all of our finances, we rewrote our wills, and we put lasting powers of attorney in place just in case. And Robert had surgery in the coming years after that, and lots of treatment. And there were times when he couldn't work. There were times when he wasn't able to run his own business, so I had to sort of step up and just keep things ticking over and just sort of get Robert in the office as and when he felt like it, so that we could continue. Because being self-employed, it's really hard when you can't work. There's no fallback position. It's not like having a 9-to-5 job where you get sick pay. You really don't get sick pay when you're self-employed. And following on from that, it's opened up so many doors, because we're involved with brain tumour charities across the UK and cancer charities. And it means that it's sort of given us a new insight into the problems that people experience when they're faced with a life-changing illness.
Thank you. And you're an author. You've got this book here. It's in front of me here. The Brain Tumor's Wife. Out of adversity comes great blessing. How did you come to be an author? Is this something you took upon yourself, or were you approached? How did that work?
Well, to be honest, I sort of did it all by myself. I felt that I had a story to tell, a story that might help other people in the same position. The book is written along the perspective of living with someone with a life-changing illness and how it affects you as a person, how it affects you as a couple, all the hopes and dreams that you had planned together for your old age may or may not happen because we still don't know. There's so much we don't know about brain tumours, it's unbelievable. And there are so many different types of brain tumours. And one day somebody came up to me and said, "Oh, I know you. You're..." and before she could say my name, she said, "I know, you're the brain tumour's wife, aren't you?" And that's how the title of the book came about.
Looking at the back, you have a Brain Tumor's Wife website as well, don't you? www.thebraintumorswife.com.
We do, yes.
What's on there?
It's really just a little bit of information. People can actually buy the book on there or from Amazon and Kindle. And it's just some contact details, really. I do some public speaking around the UK, basically on the debt and finance, but also on what it's like living with a brain tumour patient, really, and just sort of how we cope, and hopefully how our faith in particular has helped us along the way.
Okay. And also, I mean, the prognosis is unknown at the moment, I guess, for your husband. But he's going to be very busy in Solihull in the months to come, isn't he? He's going to be doing some rowing. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, I will. My husband Robert is an avid keep fit person. He absolutely loves rowing in particular. And the Brain Tumour Charity have an event coming up in May, on the 18th and 19th of May, in Touchwood, Solihull, and it's called Row for It. And it's anyone can join in. You can actually sign up to do some rowing on the day or just come along and donate. And it's an excellent way to support the charity and to provide money for very, very much needed brain tumour research.
I look forward to it. If people want to get in touch about debt relief and your debt advice, how might they do that?
Our office number is 0333 240 0851, or we have a website which is www.debtreliefsolutions.co.uk.
Carol Shaw, it's been a pleasure, and thank you for talking money with me today.
Thank you.